back. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you. And I'm wondering what it is I should do. It's so hard to
And we're
keep
back.
a smile
This
from
is
my
Boomer Life
face.
on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton, and I'm joined by JimDoyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group. And on Boomer Life today, we're talking about your financial future. Now, Jim, you've had a number of articles published locally and nationally as well in the Financial Times, the National Post, the Province, the Vancouver Sun, and you're also a frequent contributor to Business in Vancouver. I see that you've appeared on the City TV Morning Show and the Bill Good Show, as well as the Family Matters television series on Check TV with Judge Harvey Brownstone, and that you were speaking on wills and estates, as well as family finances and divorce. So I'm interpreting that you're no stranger to the media. A well-thought-out plan for your financial future is an integral part of building the life that you want for yourself and for your family. So, Jim, before the break, we were actually having a conversation about managing your own finances. Now we're going to up the ante a little bit, and we're going to talk about what happens when you're asked to manage your parents' money or help do some planning if you happen to have special needs children. So where would you suggest starting when it comes to finding solutions?
There's a lot of bits to tie together here, and you don't want to be making any money mistakes. I think it's really essential to find an advisor like me to help make sense, looking at the investments, the income choices, the tax and estate issues, and covering aspects that typically don't get thought of. It's really about a whole picture perspective.
When it comes to managing parents' money, I know a lot of people don't want to touch this task with a 10-foot pole. It could be quite intimidating. There's a lot of responsibility involved, and of course, family dynamics come into play.
Joanne, I hear what you're saying. When people come to us and they're looking at managing investments with an eye to generating income so that we don't negatively affect taxes or social benefits, this takes some good planning. You need someone who understands the issues, the options, and how all of the pieces fit together. That's what a financial planner does.
So how important actually is this tax planning detail when it comes to managing your parents' money?
It's very important. A few months ago, I had a client come to me whose mom was in a care facility, and the monthly cost was based on how much income she was generating. Once it became clear that the mom wasn't able to ever move back into her home, she sold the home. And her daughter was quite concerned that the care costs were going to go way up because of her additional investment income. She asked, how could we help?
Seems to me there's a lot of money often tied up in the family home in hopes that the situation might improve. And I think that we all hold out some kind of hope for our parents. But I think it sounds like a lot of families could be potentially losing money by not having a plan.
You know, this was a pretty emotional time for the mom and the daughter. There's a lot of change going on, and probably the last thing they wanted to look at was something about numbers. I suggested, let's see if we can't take some of the stress of this situation and look at some of the options in simple terms. You could just see the stress leaving her face.
Sounds like you did a little hand-holding there. And I actually didn't realize that this was a conversation that I should be having or someone should be having with a financial advisor. And it does sound like you really helped this family. Can you tell us in a few more details of what that actually looked like, how you helped them?
Well, you know, and I do a lot of this in my practice. The first thing we did was talk about what this picture looked like for her and for her mom. I wanted to get to know a bit about the mom. Once she felt we knew more about her mom, we started looking at the sources of income and where they were coming from. The next part was to look at the future cash needs and figure out where that was going to come from.
I'm getting a sense that this wasn't a quick visit or even a single visit, that it was a whole lot more than just choosing investments. I have to say that I think a lot of our listeners could get trapped by this, just focusing on the investments. So what else did you do?
There were a number of decisions to make, and unfortunately, many were interrelated, impacting other elements like lifestyle and cash flow. I think the daughter was caught off guard by the number of decisions she was being asked to make, so we helped explain what we'd be looking at and suggested a way to make decisions that reflected their priorities.
It's nice to hear that you actually took the time to listen and to understand the whole story before explaining any of the options to this family. I think this step-by-step approach that we're speaking of really highlights the difference between working with an investment advisor and working with a financial planner. I think it also demonstrates your hands-on approach and your personal investment.
You know, when it comes to the impact of investment choices, people really get to see a difference when they choose to work with a financial planner.
I think we're starting to see that. So aside from choosing the right investments, what else did you help this woman look at in this particular situation?
Well, we had a couple of other areas to look at, like the tax returns, to see what the mom's income or where it was coming from. More importantly, we wanted to look at the investment income and talk about how much cash flow she needed to meet her mom's ongoing needs. It doesn't make any sense to generate income and pay tax on income you don't need. Choosing the right investment mix to get the income needed without paying too much tax is one of the key outcomes of good planning.
So, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. If I heard you correctly, you just said it doesn't make sense to generate income and pay tax on income that you don't currently need. I guess this is one good reason why you would want to work with a financial planner.
Absolutely. You know, it's not how much you make, but how much you keep at the end of the day. That's what really counts. When I look at how income impacts things like, say, the age tax credit or clawback on social benefits or old age security, more income might not be a winning strategy.
So why is that? I thought the more money, the better.
I don't often talk to investors who focus on being tax efficient with their investment choices. I think people are starting to understand the importance of choosing dividend income or interest income and getting the mix right. If I can help someone increase their net income and pay less tax doing so, that feels like a win.
Well, why don't people pay much attention to how their investment income is taxed?
A lot of people I talk to are surprised that they even have choices around how their investment income is generated and how it's taxed. I think it comes down to understanding the choices available to you, and people not understanding how various sources of investment income are taxed. A small change on your investment income mix might have a big impact on your overall tax bill.
Could you actually give us an example of that?
I see people confronted with this dilemma all the time. Say a person has a poor performing investment in their RSP and they choose to redeem it because they need the money. Alternatively, they might have a great performing investment in their non-registered portfolio that has a lot of capital gains attached to it. Or, in their tax-free savings account, they might be earning a conservative, consistent return. Which investment do you take the money from?
No, that's the question for you. Which one do you take it from?
Well, the truth is, I can make an argument for each of these three scenarios we've talked about to put them in the right choices given their set of circumstances.
So what you're saying is that if I take money from one source, it might impact taxes in ways that might not normally be considered. There might be tax consequences that you might not have considered.
Joanne, you've heard of pension splitting? You know, that's where a couple elect to split up to 50% of a non-government pension benefit with their spouse.
Yeah.
Usually we see it with the person getting the pension in the higher tax bracket, transferring that to their spouse. I know a lot of couples like to pension split, and one person making or taking money from an RSP might impact how much to split on the pension.
So how does the decision to take money out of an RSP affect this?
If the lower income spouse were to withdraw money from an RSP or RIF, you might have to reallocate or recalculate the optimal pension split for the couple. It might not make sense to do the traditional 50-50 split, and in fact, a lesser split might make more sense.
Are there any other things that they need to look at?
Well, certainly. You want to look at the effects of any tax credit that gets reduced or are lost as a result of the pension split. A simple decision, such as choosing to make an RSP withdrawal, could affect a number of other tax or benefit areas. I think, if anything, it really highlights the benefit of working with an advisor.
Thanks, Jim. Some great information there. Now, the next subject is going to be a very sensitive one for some of our listeners, and it's just because it's based on emotion and family. It's one that's going to be a part of an ongoing discussion that we have with our listeners, as it's simply too much to cover its entirety in one single show. It's an introduction to planning for special needs children, including adult children.
Joanne, one of the first things I want to suggest to people is to get their own financial house in order first. Get your wills, your enduring power of attorney, your representation agreement, and trust documentation. Get all of that sorted out. It's really hard to try and deal with planning for special needs children when something is happening to you.
It's got to be a monumental task, structuring things to look after special needs kids when they're minors, and then also planning for that day when you may not be around to help them.
You know, there's a number of community programs out there that do a great job helping parents focus on the areas that are important to address when they have special needs children. There are not only ongoing care issues to concern, so when we talk about this, planning for the day that you won't be around has a number of other issues to consider.
What about managing an inheritance when parents are no longer around? I guess this is where the planning ahead of time really becomes invaluable.
Well, deciding what level of guidance is needed is probably a great starting point.
What do you mean by that?
When we look at a low function or a high function individual, it can offer a guiding hand as to what level of planning there might need to be considered. A lot of families that I work with are quite concerned that if their kids inherit, they might lose their social benefits.
Well, can you explain to us why would that matter, the loss of social benefits?
Well, there's a lot of things that come with the social benefits, such as a caseworker or somebody that knows the history or access to programs. All of that is tied to the receipt of social benefits. So losing it can be a very substantial detriment.
It's not just about the money.
Yeah.
Jim, I think families are facing some very legitimate concerns here.
You know, we hear this all the time. When people share their stories, they're telling us, I can't do all the planning I want. I've got costs for looking after my special needs kids. In short, I have not only to plan for my own retirement, but make sure that my planning for my special needs child survives well beyond me. Even something as seemingly straightforward as naming an RRSP beneficiary can require good planning.
So can you explain what are the most efficient ways to inherit an RRSP?
Well, it starts by choosing your beneficiary designations well. This means we often see parents naming a child as a beneficiary for an RSP, and in many situations, this is not an intended result. Naming a child as an RSP beneficiary can see all of the proceeds of the RSP or the RIF paid out to the beneficiary by the time they reach the age of 19. So for instance, a 12-year-old beneficiary could see 1/7 of the RSP or RIF paid out to them annually. There are ways you can name a beneficiary so that this doesn't happen, but of course, that's where we help.
We could probably have a much longer discussion on that topic as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think choosing a trustee on your beneficiary designation. So if you have a parent or somebody that's special, naming that person in trust for the name of the minor makes sure that that legacy can last beyond the 19th birthday.
Thanks very much. Sounds like you need great people to help implement your plan and ensure that you're on track. You're listening to BoomerLife on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we've been speaking with JimDoyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group. Financial security is a paramount goal for most Canadians. The need for advice has never been greater. Consider working with an advisor to rediscover confidence in your financial future. Still a lot more to come with our conversation with Jim today, including some thoughts on family businesses and some of the unique planning issues that they face. Next on BoomerLife on CL 650. If you want more information and to get to know Jim a little bit better, please go to his website, jimdoyle.ca, or you can call him directly, toll-free, 1-800-665-7178 or 604-682-5431.
Canada's only weekly radio show dedicated to the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.